Hey guys, last week I put out a video on how to change out the Wolverine arms, the new MCU Deadpool and Wolverine arms, and it did really well, which I'm really happy about. And I thought that I might follow up with another video related to Wolverine. Obviously, that's why I'm holding him, of course, because of the head. Now, I've seen some complaints about how the unmasked head is just kind of a neutral head, and I kind of agree that's kind of a bummer because, you know, Wolverine, he's berserker, he gets really mad, and so, you know, you want that screaming face. So between the two heads that we have, they are both neutral looking heads. And so I have an idea of how we can resolve it. So if you followed my tutorial on how to swap out the arms, then that means that you're using the Legacy Wolverine body. Now, if you did that, then that means that you have a couple of heads left over, right? So the two heads that we have are these two heads. And so this one in particular is the one that we're looking at. And this one, while it is a good head, it really looks just the same as the original except the hair. And that's why we're talking about this in the first place, because throughout Hugh Jackman's role as Wolverine, in all of the films that he's played Wolverine, his hair has changed quite a bit. Sometimes I try to make him look more like Wolverine. Other times, like with this head, it's a little bit different. This one's a lot more slicked back, so it doesn't have quite the kind of points that the comic book and animated versions of Wolverine looks like. And I really like the idea of changing this hair to match this head. And so we're gonna see if that's really possible. So let's get right down to it. The tools we're using are the same as the last time. So we need hot water, we need a bowl, paper towels, and possibly trimmers. I don't think we'll need trimmers this time, but we'll see. Although this time we're also gonna need a kind of a pry tool, and I'll link a version of this in the description below. It may not be exactly this brand. I think I got this as part of an iFixit toolkit, but I'll find one that's as close as I can find. And otherwise, let's just jump right into doing it. So just like last time, we're using boiling hot water, and I'm just gonna throw both of the heads in there and let them sit for as long as I can. Now, that is a tough thing to do because you want it to be hot enough that you can start kind of peeling at it, but not too hot where you burn yourself a bunch. I burned myself a little bit on the last video, and I'll probably burn myself again, but please just be careful about burning yourself. If you burn yourself, I'm not liable. Now, the thing is that even though we are boiling it, the problem is still that the hair is basically glued to the head. I don't know if it's something that they actually use some kind of chemical to adhere, or if there's a process where the plastic is actually fused to the other plastic. But at least by making it this hot, it should give us the chance to at least start peeling it to see if we can kind of get something in there to help pry it. And speaking of that, I do have a knife on standby just in the case we need to do that, but I really want to avoid doing that because it's going to be super easy to slip and cut something off or cut through the hair or the head, and possibly, of course, also cut yourself. So this is going to be a last resort, but it's there in case I need it. And so for now, I'm going to start with our original head with the hair that we want to keep. And that's definitely super hot. So I'm going to just try peeling at it. And as you can see, it's starting to come out a bit. Oh, nice. All right, so it doesn't quite want to come out anymore. I got it out a nice amount, but sometimes this is going to happen where either I didn't let it sit long enough, or it's so fused together that you need to peel it out a little bit so that that way you get the space so that the hot water can seep further in to heat more of it up. So while that's heating up, I'm gonna swap out to the other head and see if I can start pulling off that hair. All right, so kind of similar situation. I was able to start getting it out. I would recommend that even if you get it this far, where that means you have enough leverage to start really peeling at it, not to do that, because you're going to put stress right here, and you could either like have stress marks when you start really pulling, or you could possibly even tear it by pulling too hard. So I'm just going to try heating that up some more, and I'm just going to switch back to the original Wolverine head and keep at it. So the hair was definitely really fused to the head quite a bit. Luckily, this tool that I'm using has enough of a blade on it that it helped to actually cut the hair, like whatever's how it's fused together, without being so sharp that I cut through anything that I didn't want to cut through. So I would say this is a pretty crucial tool for this particular mod. All right, got the first one off. That's more work than I wanted to do, but here is your bald Hugh Jackman and his hair. So this is the hair that we're keeping. And here's potentially what Hugh Jackman looks like if he's bald. You can see that the backside, that the hair has a kind of a keystone molded into it. So hopefully the other one has the same thing to keep this simple. If not, then we're gonna need to do some trimming. Okay, got it. So here is our second head, our screaming head. Here's the hair that comes with it. And doing a little comparison of the two, because what we're interested to see is how easy it'll be to swap the hair over. So unfortunately, it's not gonna be a straight swap. You can see that the keystones for both are differently shaped. And this one has an additional kind of keystone up here. So that one's not too bad, because that means that because this one doesn't have one to the same degree, that it might even just fit into those grooves. So let's see how it fits by just putting it over, no trimming or anything. So we have our, so there is no way for me to get that any closer onto the head. The back piece that holds it in is just too big. So luckily we have our trusty trimmers, and I'm just gonna start cutting that out entirely. Okay, big problem. So even though I did trim out the backside, it still hasn't changed that much. So as you can see, I did cut out a bunch of it, but it's not making that much of a difference. And I think that's just because the shape of the hair is that different. This hair, it kind of comes back quite a bit more. This one just kind of drops down a lot more. So as you can see on the heads themselves, that this head has a lot more molding into it to make it smaller than this one. So this one could almost actually even work as a regular head, besides, you know, the gaps, but the shape of it is actually a pretty good shape in that regard. So there's really two approaches. So either we cut this to be more like this, or we try to cut more out of here, but I think that's not as good of an idea, because it's going to be too easy to cut too far in and then accidentally pierce through and stuff like that. So I'd rather cut more of this off, and I think that's going to be the approach that I'm going to take. And again, the trimmers that we have should take care of that, no problem. So hopefully this is a useful angle so that you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. So you can see how much shorter that one head is than the other, right? And so we want to try to match that as much. So I think what I'll do is the key right here, this part of it, like that's going to be how flat that I make it. And I'm just going to start with that, and hopefully that'll be enough. Okay, so I cut off a pretty good chunk of it, as you can see. However, it's still not enough. So looks okay-ish there, but then when you get to the side, you can see that even though it has moved forward a bit, it's still not as much as we need it to be. Okay, so I've done a furious amount of trimming. It was a lot more than I was expecting to do. Here is my current result, and I think overall that looks pretty good. My plan is to heat up the hair to try to get it into a slightly smaller shape, because you can see that I have some slight gaps right at the hairline. It's not too bad, but I want to try to close those gaps as much as possible. So the idea is going to be like heat it up and then just kind of like squish it into hopefully a squished in shape. That way when I put the head in, then hopefully the gap is filled out a little bit. I'm also going to take pictures of my cuts so that you can get a better idea of what I did exactly. I ended up using this part of the tool quite a bit to just kind of scoop plastic out, and maybe I should have gone in and done even more, and maybe that would help the head fit better. But I'm going to take pictures of that, I'm going to take pictures of the head, and then I'm going to post all that on my Instagram, so follow me there if you aren't already, to at least get the pictures of that. Otherwise, my plan is to do all that, glue this together, and then we'll have a final look after that.
5 years later.
Okay, I've got the fully glued in hair, so let's take a look. And I am actually pretty happy with it. It was kind of scary throughout the process. I thought I was going to end up having to just scrap the video entirely because it just didn't seem like it was going to go quite my way. but I think it turned out really well. I'm actually really surprised. So one little problem is like the ear looks just fine on this side. The hair around it looks just great. On this side, it's a little less great, but I'd say that that's not that big of a deal. It doesn't bother me that much. If I was really bothered by it, I would probably just cut a little bit more on this side of the head to try to get this a little bit further down. But honestly, I'm looking at the front, not exactly that exact side of it. And even if you were looking at that, just that side of it, it's really not that bad either, at least in my opinion. So hopefully that's really helpful to you. If it is, I actually did the same thing for Black Widow, and I've got that video right here if you want to check that one out.